Judged by his appearance, this farmer's next move left everyone speechless. The first light of dawn barely touched the horizon when Levi Johnson stepped out of his weathered pickup truck, parking it on the tarmac of a private hangar in the bustling airport district. The gravel crunched under his heavy boots, mingling with the unmistakable scent of jet fuel and the crisp morning air. The distant whir of engines from several planes provided the soundtrack to what Levi hoped would be a game-changing day for him. He adjusted the worn-out, wide-brimmed hat perched on his head, an old companion from the long hours spent on his farm. His faded flannel shirt and well-used overalls were a testament to years of grueling manual labor. Calloused hands and a strong back were his badge of honor. Levi had long grown accustomed to the skeptical stares and whispered judgments from those who didn't understand his life. But today, he was different. Today, he was here to turn his hard work and persistence into something bigger, a vision that had consumed him for years, and one that would redefine his entire future. Judged by his appearance, this farmer's next move left everyone speechless. As Levi walked into the hangar, he couldn't help but admire the sleek jets lined up like masterpieces, their polished surfaces glinting under the soft glow of the morning sun. The quiet buzz of conversation filled the air as a few sharply dressed men moved about, discussing business. Levi, however, had other plans. He made his way to the reception desk, where a tall man in a tailored black suit noticed him almost immediately. The man's gaze briefly dropped to Levi's worn boots before traveling up, pausing on his faded denim shirt and the tattered straw hat resting atop his head. A polite smile flickered on the man's face, but it wavered slightly as he stepped forward. Good morning," Levi said, offering a firm handshake. "I'm here to inquire about purchasing a jet." The man raised an eyebrow, his smile tightening, unsure how to react. "You're here to buy a jet." His voice was steady, but the brief hesitation between his words revealed what he really thought. Levi had faced moments like this all his life. He had learned how to navigate them long ago. Levi wasn't always the man walking into a hangar to buy a jet. His story began far from luxury. Raised in a modest farming town in southern Arkansas, Levi had witnessed his family's struggles to keep their land alive. His parents instilled two lessons in him that he'd carried with him ever since. Never let your situation define you, and always figure out a way to innovate. By the time he was in his early 20s, Levi inherited the family farm. The land was vast, but the profits were nearly non-existent. For years, he worked tirelessly to keep the farm afloat, selling produce at farmers' markets, taking seasonal jobs, and even working odd shifts at local factories in the winter. But no matter how hard he tried, it always felt like there was something missing. Judged by his appearance, this farmer's next move left everyone speechless. Everything changed the day Levi decided to break away from tradition and start thinking outside the box. While other farmers in his area were content selling their products locally, Levi aimed higher. He realized that if he could find a way to ship his goods to major cities across the country, he could bypass the middleman and build direct relationships with customers. It wasn't an easy decision. Banks dismissed him, neighbors mocked him. But Levi refused to back down. His first real breakthrough came when he secured a partnership with a large grocery chain in Chicago. With that contract, he was able to invest in refrigerated trucks, hire a crew, and begin to slowly but surely build his own small empire. Over the next decade, Levi expanded his operation, adding meats and dairy to his list of offerings. By the time he reached 50, his farm was delivering fresh produce to over 12 states, with families across the Midwest relying on him for high-quality, farm-fresh food. Now, at 57, Levi had a new, ambitious idea: direct deliveries by air. A jet would allow him to transport his products faster than any of his competitors, ensuring that his farm's produce arrived fresher than ever before. To Levi, the jet wasn't a luxury, it was a critical tool that could take his business to new heights. However, entering the world of corporate executives and affluent businessmen was no easy task. Levi knew he didn't look like the typical buyer of private jets. But none of that mattered. He wasn't defined by his clothes or how he appeared to others. His success was measured by the lives he impacted: his employees, the customers who trusted him, and the families who enjoyed the food his farm provided. Back in the hangar, the salesman's gaze lingered on Levi's boots, noting the thick mud still caked on the edges. "And what kind of jet are you interested in?" he asked, his voice polite but laced with an unmistakable skepticism. Levi flashed a smile that carried the weight of countless long days in the fields, each sunrise earned with hard work and persistence. "Something dependable," he said, "that can transport fresh produce across the country without any issues." The salesman's reaction wasn't quite what Levi had hoped for, and he could feel the undercurrent of doubt brewing just below the surface. The man cleared his throat, adjusting the cuff of his designer sleeve. His name tag read Elliot Pierce, and everything about him, from the gleam of his polished shoes to the precision of his perfectly combed hair, screamed high society. Elliot waved a hand toward the showroom area, where sleek jets rested like trophies under bright lights. "Well, Mr. Johnson," he said, stressing the name as though unsure it truly belonged to Levi, "these jets are intended for a very specific kind of client. Are you sure this is the direction you want to go?" Levi didn't miss the hesitation, and he had heard it too many times before, sometimes subtle, sometimes blatantly obvious. But today wasn't the day for arguments. "I know exactly what I need," Levi replied, his tone steady and calm. "I've done my homework." Elliot's smile faltered slightly. "Of course," he said, motioning for Levi to follow him to a jet parked under brilliant overhead lights. "This is the Falcon XJ-50. It's perfect for business travel, seats 8 comfortably, with an impressive cargo capacity. The starting price is for $0.1 million. The way Elliot dropped the price, it was as if he were daring Levi to flinch, but instead, Levi nodded thoughtfully and took a step closer to the jet. He ran his rough, calloused hand along its smooth surface, his fingers appreciating the precision of the design. "How much weight can it carry?" Levi asked, his voice even and steady. Elliot paused, clearly uncomfortable with the question. "Well, it depends," he said carefully, choosing his words with caution. "Most of our clients use it for executives and their luggage. Are you sure it's the right fit for your needs?" Levi turned to face him, his expression calm but resolute. "I'm transporting produce, not passengers. The weight capacity is crucial." Elliot blinked, clearly taken aback. "Produce?" He repeated the word, letting it linger in the air as though it didn't belong in the conversation. His gaze flicked back to Levi's boots, and this time, a slight trace of disdain flickered across his face. "Mr. Johnson, this is a luxury jet. It's not exactly a delivery truck." The words stung, but Levi didn't let it show. He had encountered men like Elliot before, people who judged worth based on the cut of a suit and the gleam of a watch. Men who couldn't fathom a farmer stepping into their world with anything more than dirt on his hands. But Levi also knew something else. Men like Elliot rarely saw the bigger picture. "I know what it is," Levi said firmly. "That's exactly why I'm here." Elliot raised an eyebrow, about to respond when another man approached a similar suit, but with a more approachable demeanor. He gave Elliot a quick nod before turning to Levi. "Good morning," the newcomer said. "I'm Tom. Can I assist you with any questions?" Levi shook his hand, sizing him up. "Levi Johnson. I'm looking to purchase a jet for business transportation." "I'd like to learn more about this one," Levi said, gesturing toward the aircraft. Tom glanced at Elliot, sensing the tension, but choosing to ignore it. "Of course, Mr. Johnson, the Falcon XJ-50 is a solid choice. It's versatile with a maximum cargo capacity of 3,000 pounds. Would you like to step inside?" For the first time, Levi noticed Elliot shift uneasily. He could feel the change in the air, but he remained focused. "Yes," Levi said, his voice resolute. "Let's take a look." As they climbed the steps into the jet, Levi couldn't shake the feeling that Elliot's doubts weren't quite finished and he was ready to face them head-on. The interior was immaculate, with leather seats that gleamed under soft lighting. The layout screamed luxury: seating for a few, polished tables for in-flight work, and enough space for passengers to feel at ease during their journey. Tom guided Levi through the features, pointing out everything from the advanced navigation system to the jet's fuel efficiency. "Impressive," Levi said, his tone thoughtful. He ran his hand over the armrest of one of the seats, imagining the crates of fresh produce he could load and the cities he could reach. Elliot stood near the door, arms crossed, no longer attempting to mask his skepticism. "You'd need to make some modifications," he said sharply. "Jets like this aren't exactly built for hauling produce." Levi turned to face him, his expression calm yet piercing. "And yet, they can be," Levi replied. "Efficiency is efficiency, no matter what you're transporting." Tom, sensing the tension rising, cleared his throat and stepped in. "It's true," Tom said, his tone conciliatory. "We've had clients customize jets for a variety of business purposes. It's about tailoring the aircraft to your specific needs, Mr. Johnson." Levi gave Tom a small smile, appreciating his professionalism. But he knew that Elliot wasn't done yet. "And what kind of operation are you running, Mr. Johnson?" Elliot asked, his voice laced with barely concealed condescension. "If you don't mind my asking," Levi paused, weighing his response. He could have easily dismissed the question, but instead, he decided to let his story speak for itself. "I own and operate Johnson Farms," he said, his voice steady. "We supply fresh produce, dairy, and meat to grocery chains across 12 states. My team consists of over 60 employees, and last year, we brought in $14.2 million in revenue." For a brief moment, the cabin fell silent. Elliot's smirk faltered, replaced by a subtle look of disbelief. "14 million?" He repeated, his voice incredulous, as though the number was completely foreign to him. "That's right," Levi said, his tone firm. "And we're growing. Demand is increasing every year, and I'm here because this jet will help us meet that demand. My customers depend on quality and speed, and that's exactly what I plan to deliver." Tom looked genuinely impressed, while Elliot seemed to be struggling to process the information he had just heard. That's quite the operation," Elliot stammered, trying to recover. "I didn't realize. You didn't ask," Levi said plainly. His voice wasn't angry, just matter of fact. "You looked at me and assumed." The words hung in the air, undeniable and heavy. Elliot opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. Sensing the tension, Tom broke the silence. "Mr. Johnson, I believe this jet could be a perfect fit for your needs," he said, his tone genuine. "If you'd like, I can connect you with our customization team to discuss the modifications." "I'd appreciate that," Levi replied, his voice calm and collected. "Let's make it happen." Elliot shifted uncomfortably, his earlier confidence visibly shaken. Levi caught the look but didn't linger on it. He'd encountered countless people like Elliot over the years, those who underestimated him, dismissed him, or outright ignored him. But Levi had learned long ago that the best way to handle doubt wasn't with anger, it was with results. As they stepped off the jet, Tom excused himself to grab some paperwork, leaving Levi and Elliot standing by the stairs. For a moment, neither man spoke. Then Elliot cleared his throat. I owe you an apology," he said, his voice quieter now. "I misjudged you." Levi turned to him, his expression unreadable. "You're not the first," he said simply, "and you won't be the last." Elliot nodded, his gaze falling to the floor. "Still, it was wrong. I'll make sure everything moves smoothly from here," he said, his voice more sincere. Levi studied him for a moment, then gave a small nod. "Fair enough." But even as the tension began to dissipate, Levi couldn't help but wonder how many others had faced the same kind of judgment and never had the chance to prove themselves. That thought lingered with him throughout the rest of the day. As the day wore on, Elliot's attitude started to shift. Whether it was guilt gnawing at him or the realization that Levi was serious business, his once dismissive air gave way to something resembling respect, or at least an attempt at it. When Tom returned with the paperwork, Elliot stayed close, chiming in with details about the jet's specifications. His tone was smoother now, more professional, but Levi could still sense the discomfort beneath the surface. Elliot wasn't used to being wrong, and it was obvious. "So, Mr. Johnson," Elliot began cautiously, "if we proceed with the purchase, I'd recommend adding reinforced cargo flooring. It would help with the weight distribution of your produce crates." Levi glanced at him, noting the effort, and decided to meet it halfway. "That's a good suggestion," Levi said, nodding. "I'll need to speak with your customization team to ensure it fits with the business model." Elliot nodded quickly, almost too eagerly. "Of course. We can set up a meeting as soon as you're ready." The shift in Elliot's tone didn't go unnoticed by Tom, who shot Levi a subtle, knowing glance. It was small, but there was an understanding between the two men, both having dealt with people like Elliot before. Levi appreciated Tom's quiet support, but he wasn't here for validation. He was here to make things happen. As the conversation shifted toward pricing and logistics, Levi remained sharp. He knew his numbers inside and out and wasn't about to let anyone upsell him on unnecessary features. Elliot tried once or twice, suggesting add-ons that Levi quickly declined. By the third attempt, Elliot stopped, realizing Levi wasn't someone to be easily swayed. By the time they finished, Elliot seemed genuinely invested in making the sale work. He even offered to personally oversee the customization process, a gesture Levi couldn't decide was born from sincerity or simply damage control. "Thank you, Mr. Johnson," Elliot said as they wrapped up the discussion. "We'll make sure everything is handled with care." Levi simply nodded, his expression unwavering. "I'll hold you to that." As they walked back toward the hangar's entrance, a small group near the front desk caught Levi's attention. One of them, a young black man in his early 20s, dressed in a crisp maintenance uniform, was speaking animatedly with an older man who looked like a manager. From their body language, it was clear the younger man was pleading his case about something, but the manager seemed unimpressed. Levi slowed his pace, watching the interaction unfold. The younger man glanced up and caught Levi's eye, his expression shifting to one of recognition. Levi wasn't sure why, but something about the scene struck a chord. He turned to Tom and Elliot. "Give me a moment," he said, his voice firm but calm. He walked over to the group, the sound of his boots echoing on the polished floor. As he approached, the manager turned toward him, his expression polite but guarded. "Can I help you, sir?" the manager asked. Levi looked at the younger man, who straightened his posture under Levi's gaze. "What's going on here?" Levi asked, his voice steady but commanding. The younger man hesitated, glancing at the manager before speaking. "I was asking about an opening for an apprentice in the aviation maintenance program," he said, "but I don't think I'm what they're looking for." The words hit Levi harder than he expected. He saw himself in this young man, the same quiet determination, the same fire to prove himself in a world that often judged before it understood. But Levi wasn't about to let this moment slip by without making an impact. He had an idea, one that could change more than just the course of his own day. Levi turned his attention to the manager, his steady gaze making the man shift uncomfortably. "And why wouldn't he be what you're looking for?" Levi asked, his voice calm but unmistakably firm. The manager stammered, clearly caught off guard. "Well, sir, it's not that he isn't qualified. We just have a lot of applicants, and we prioritize those with more experience." Levi raised an eyebrow. "Experience, or something else?" The young man's eyes widened, his lips parting as if to speak, but he quickly pressed them together. Levi could see the internal struggle on his face, the urge to defend himself clashing with years of being taught not to make waves. "What's your name, son?" Levi asked, turning to the young man. "Derek," he replied, his voice steady despite the tension. "Derek Porter." "Well, Derek," Levi said, loud enough for everyone in the area to hear, "I don't know much about aviation maintenance, but I do know talent and determination when I see it. And you've got both." Derek looked stunned, while the manager fidgeted uncomfortably. Levi turned back to him. "I'm purchasing a jet from this hangar, a jet that will need maintenance. Now, if I'm going to trust your team with my investment, I want to know you're giving opportunities to people who are willing to work for them." The manager's face flushed red, but he quickly composed himself. "Of course, sir," he said, his voice tight. "We'd be happy to reconsider Derek's application." Levi nodded, satisfied but not fooled. He turned back to Derek. "I've been in your shoes," Levi said quietly. "Don't let anyone tell you what you're worth. If they won't give you a chance, find someone who will." Derek nodded, his face a mix of gratitude and determination. "Thank you, sir," he said. "I won't forget this." Levi offered a small, knowing smile. "Neither will I." As Levi walked back toward Tom and Elliot, he could feel their eyes on him, the unasked questions hanging in the air. He didn't offer any explanations. He didn't need to, everything squared away. Tom asked, trying to break the silence and lighten the mood. Levi nodded, just tying up loose ends. Elliot looked like he wanted to speak, but he remained quiet. For the first time all day, there was a reflective quality in his gaze, as though the events had stirred something deep within him. As Levi stepped outside, the crisp air hit him, carrying the faint scent of jet fuel. He looked up at the vast, open sky, his mind racing not with doubts, but with possibilities. The jet wasn't just a tool for business, it was a statement. A symbol of what could be accomplished when you refuse to let others define your limits. But for Levi, the real victory wasn't the jet. It was knowing he'd made a difference in someone else's journey, just as others had done for him long ago. As Levi drove away from the airport, the weight of the day settled in. The deal was done, the jet was his, but that wasn't what lingered in his thoughts. It was the look on Derek's face, the flicker of hope that Levi recognized all too well. He knew how rare it was to have someone believe in you when the odds seemed stacked against you. Levi thought back to his own journey, the countless times he'd been underestimated, dismissed, or outright ignored. Yet here he was, a farmer from Arkansas, about to use a private jet to transport fresh produce across the country. Not because he fit the mold of what success was supposed to look like, but because he refused to let others define his worth. Success wasn't just about the money or the achievements. It was about the lives you touched along the way, the people you lifted up when no one else would. And Levi knew that his story, his presence, and his choices had the power to shift perspectives, even if just a little. That was the lesson he hoped others would take from his journey. Resilience wasn't about ignoring the doubters. It was about proving them wrong, and humility wasn't about staying silent. It was about letting your actions speak louder than their judgments. Levi had come to the airport for a jet, but he left with something far more valuable, a reminder that every step forward could pave the way for someone else. To all those watching, remember this: you are more than what the world sees. Your dreams are valid, your work is meaningful, and your perseverance will always matter. If Levi's story inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And most importantly, never stop believing in your worth.